It's just gone 9 o'clock in the morning and the heat is very intense. Ireland is going through quite a spectacular heat wave with temperatures up to 32 degrees centigrade, virtually unheard of. Fortunately, here at Bealtaine, there is shade and cool for all living creatures, including myself. And Terence, who's been working here and doing a fine job because he's been clearing the paths for me, as you can see. Terence is working in the shade. I've told him to, whatever work he does, find work to do in the shade rather than be out in the sun, being so exposed to the almost like the harshness of the heat. See, Ireland isn't used to this kind of heat. So I'm just walking along the paths now where Terry rather than Terence, has been working. So excuse me for pausing every so often, because I'm actually looking around me as I'm walking. I'm just absorbing things. And also this is my first walk of the morning, so I find it very relaxing, very meditative. It's beautiful down here, really lovely and cool. I think there's a difference of about 10 degrees centigrade at least. And the nice thing about having the front and back door open in the cottage is that there's a lot of cool air coming up from the trees and also coming in from the trees, because of course you know that I'm surrounded now by woodland. This is the cottage in the woods that I envisaged. Have a little look at the spring well here. This is the little spring well that feeds the pond. It's very, very low, as you can see, but there's still a little trickle from it. This little spring well has never dried up. In fact, the spring wells in Ireland, including the one that's on the hill that feeds the cottage, has never dried up. But what happens is the pressure in the aquifer drops and can drop quite dramatically. And so you end up with the water not reaching the outlet pipe from where it flows down the hill and to the cottage. Now, for any of you who follow me on Facebook or Twitter, I'm taking a little bit of a break, and you can just hear the water trickling down. See? I'm taking a little bit of a break because I just feel I need to at this point in time. I'm transitioning onto a whole food plant-based diet. I did say that I was going to, keep a journal and bring you along with me, but I found keeping the journal, keeping Facebook going, keeping Twitter going, it's suddenly become a little bit too much for me, because I'm also trying to write. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to post just occasionally. And yes, I have taken down the journal from the website. I thought that would be the easiest thing to do, and at some point then I shall engage with you all via a blog and keep you updated that way. But it won't be a sort of like an everyday thing. So hopefully you understand this, because there are times when I just need to get on with other work, and I have other work to get on with. Plus the fact I find the heat actually very exhausting. I've never been a good person in the heat. But it is very beautiful today, so I can't really complain. Just go down this way now. Just walking the paths. Yes, I think Terry has been quite sympathetic in his cutting back and pruning. And that's really lovely to be able to work with someone who is on the same wavelength and understands how to interact with the land here. In fact, that's hugely important. See, look, like here, this is great. Lovely. The pond is very low, but holding on in there. Just see. There'll always be enough water in the pond to keep everything alive and relatively healthy. And there's parts of the pond where there's quite deep pools, so I'm not too concerned about that. There's been complaints from farmers on the radio this morning, especially in Leitrim, which is just beside Roscommon where I am. And the complaints centre around the lack of grass that they can cut, you know, because of the heat wave and because of everything. They're saying now that it's really causing problems out there in the land. Well, you know something? This is climate change. And for those who want to argue the toss about climate change, this is extreme weather. It's all one and the same from where I'm standing, certainly. So where you have weather extremes, they no longer become just anomalies. When you have weather extremes becoming the norm, and if you look back on videos over the past, you know, the videos go back, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 years, whatever, you will see, oh, hang on, there's a tractor en route along this road. Can barely see it now, but you can hear it. So where you have that pattern emerging, that every summer there's a problem. Either it's incredibly wet and you have flooding, or it's incredibly dry, and that kind of normal balance seems to have become less and less the norm and more the accepted status quo. I was also reading that in fact in the newspaper yesterday, because I went into town and I actually did buy a newspaper. I thought I must just catch up now, you know, with a few things, and I bought one of the broadsheets to have a jolly good read and to kind of get a sort of an overview on what was happening. And it would appear that the crops that were sown here in Ireland in mid to late spring, they're struggling. Those crops are struggling, and some of the grains that were planted, barley, wheat, and a few others, they are well below what is expected of them at this point. And now the farmers are saying, because of the lack of rain, because of the drought, and because of the intense heat, there's going to be, what they are saying is, a 50% return on the harvest. In other words, they're going to be losing 50% of what they expected to make. So the farmers are already asking for help, financial help, in whatever guise can be given to them, you know. So whether that's from the government or from the EU. So it looks as though what I sort of thought was going to happen over a period of, say, 15, maybe 20 years, is happening much faster. So I'm just going to sit down here, pull out one of these chairs. This is rather nice and cool. I'll just grab this chair here and just plonk it here in this beautiful little space. Now, oh, this is beautiful. So there appears to be a ramping up of weather extremes, and the consequences of those weather extremes are definitely going to impact upon crops. And this is what I've said all along, that if humankind doesn't alter their behaviour and doesn't start taking into consideration the impact, the detrimental impact that they're having from their worst behaviour, i.e. putting greed before need, and also monoculture, farming the life out of Mother Earth, and monoculture, growing meat from Mother Earth, and this incredibly avaricious lifestyle that seems to have been nurtured by the West and been quickly adopted by so many other developing economies, then something has to give somewhere. Something has to give. And I do firmly believe that Mother Earth is constantly rebalancing herself. In fact, that's what James Lovelock has said all along, that Mother Earth is continually rebalancing herself. Now, if we have put things out of balance because of our own selfish behaviour, and we're not prepared to rebalance, she will rebalance the situation for us. That's how it's going to go. So I'm seeing a time of great stress, not just ahead, but happening now. The stress upon the planet is happening now, and the stress upon us as a species is going to be felt by the end of this summer. And I think we're going to see food prices going up and up and up. They're not going to be coming back down again, because you factor all the other things in. So you factor the loss of topsoil, you factor extreme heat, you factor extreme wet, you factor extreme cold, you factor extreme weather, you factor a growing population, you factor this growing propensity that we seem to have for eating more and more and more. We're not just eating the planet alive, we're almost eating ourselves alive. Well, we're eating ourselves dead. But there is real stress happening. And I have had over the years just some very, very simple mantras that I've put out there. And one is plant like your life depends upon it, because it does. Well, I'm looking around me and I'm seeing life, and I'm able to sit here in the shade and experience life without too much stress. I could not begin to understand what it must feel like without these trees here and without this shelter, not just for me but for all the life around me. If this had remained, a monoculture, grass, rushes, 3 acres, this would not be an ark for life. I'm sometimes a wee bit feeling bereft that so many others don't see it like this. And then at other times I feel a little bit uplifted that there are many more people coming on board. Certainly when it comes to, YouTube and websites, well, yeah, there's a very slowly growing subscription rate. But if I was talking nonsense, if I was talking absolute nonsense and behaving in a nonsensical way and being rude and ignorant, there would be probably double the subscribers on this website. Sadly, that's how life is. But anyway, onwards and upwards. That's just how I'm feeling today. I felt very very concerned reading the articles yesterday, and not just reading them, but knowing that they were true, because they were basically reiterating a lot of what was already in my head and a lot of what I had already observed. So, from the beauty of Bealtaine Cottage, from this little bit of hope, because that's what we must have at this point, and not just have hope but create hope. We have to work twice as hard. We have to work twice as hard now to try to develop whatever little spaces of sanctuary that we've started. And there is no time for sitting down, drawing out designs and plans and being, arrogant about, well, this is how I'd like my space. Please, plant like your life depends upon it, because it does. What little bits of food, if you cannot plant for yourself, plant for life. If I had €1 for every time someone on social media said to me, how much crops do you grow there? How many pounds of food do you grow there? And I'm aghast at the arrogance, because where do I start counting the amount of food that I grow here? But those people asking the questions are saying, food for you, food for us humans, never mind anything else, just food for us. That's the monoculture mind. I can't respond to the monoculture mind. The monoculture mind has almost brought us as a species to destruction. Blessings to you all.